Hello everyone, it's Paul with Tutor U, and today we're going to be going over factoring and solving polynomials or quadratic equations. I know that's a mouthful, but I promise as we go through the class today, it's going to be much easier to figure these things out. And I hope that my audio is working this time. Yesterday, the class, I didn't have my audio working quite right, but let's get started. If you don't have your cup of coffee already, make sure you have a cup of coffee or your energy drink or whatever you choose. You always want to go through math kind of relaxed, right? We want the lowest amount of anxiety and stress when we're dealing with math because people get stressed out enough as is, right? So let's get started with the class today. All right, let's go here. Boom, I have my chalkboard all set and ready. And just like all of my other classes, I like to get the definitions and the vocabulary out of the way first, just so we have that knowledge. We know what we're working with. So let's go ahead and get our definitions up on the board. The very first definition, so remember, we're factoring and solving quadratics, polynomials, right? We'll go through examples too near the end of the class, and that should really help you out with the understanding. Before we get started, I just want to stress like how much I appreciate all of you that are watching. It really is awesome to see this channel growing as well as what it is. Getting people to actually watch my videos and letting me help them, right? So it's really, really awesome. I appreciate it. If you want to help me help more people, make sure you hit the like button down below. That spreads it inside of YouTube's algorithm, and they let more people know about me and my classes. So yeah, if you are watching now or if you're watching later, if you hit that like button, it's going to spread it across YouTube so more people can get help with math. Let's go ahead and define our first term, right? So you might be wondering, what are factors? What does it mean to factor something? And before I put it up on the board, I just want to stress, like, it's going to be a lot of text all over the place up here, okay? So just kind of visually get yourself ready for a lot of my handwriting. So let's see. Okay, yeah, a lot of stuff. Don't worry, don't stress out. We're going to go through this. So factors. What are factors? When I ask you to find a factor of something, what is it? Well, they are numbers or expressions that are multiplied together to form a product, okay? So basically, if you multiply 2 and 2, so 2 times 2, that equals 4. 2 is a factor of 4, okay? If you multiply 1 and 4, 1 and 4, well, 1 is a factor of 4. Let's just take, for instance, the number 6. The factors of 6 are 2 and 3, so those are the factors of 6. But you can also have letters involved with your factors, right? So there are one-term factors, or so like 4y is a factor of something. You can have two terms, so when you have something like 4y plus 5, and that is a factor, that would be a factor of a binomial or a polynomial equation. And you'll see a good example of what a binomial looks like right next to that second term. So, or more terms. So y squared plus 4y plus 5, that could be, it's not the most simplified factor, but it's in the process of factoring. We could probably actually factor certain things out of that. But let's move on to our next definition. So we have a little bit better of an idea, and as we go through the class today, you're going to have a better understanding of what factors are. They are tools, right? Everything in algebra, they are tools. They're meant to be used. So the best way to really learn about them is to use them. And we're going to work through 7 or 8 examples near the end of this class. And by the time we're done with those 7 or 8 examples, you're going to have a much better understanding of what factors are. The next term that we want to define right? You might not be familiar with quadratics. So another wall of text, and if you're taking notes, that's awesome. I might be going a little bit too fast for taking notes, but if you need to take a screenshot, you'll be good to go. Save it for later, write it down in your notebook, and I strongly encourage you to be writing things down in your notebook because that's going to improve your studying and test taking abilities. You're going to be able to remember more by writing it all down. The next term we want to define is a quadratic. So what is a quadratic equation? Well, it can be written as ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are integers and a cannot equal 0. That equal sign with a cross through it, that is cannot equal. Okay? Quadratics, for the most part, this is going to get you through most of your studying, right? The deeper understanding of quadratics, if you guys want me to get into it, I absolutely will, so you can have a better understanding of it. But I mean, quadratics really are used all over the place when it comes to construction, different types of squares, finding points of different intersecting pieces. Quadratics are pretty cool. They're very powerful, actually. The level of mathematics, when people like to complain that we don't use this math. Well, we choose not to use this math, right? If you were working in dealing with satellites or anything, you would definitely be using quadratics. And who's to say that you're not going to do that someday? If you are studying for your GED, shoot for the moon, right? Go for an engineering degree. Go for any type of upper level math degree. Don't be afraid to reach farther than what you initially think you can, because I believe that you can probably get there. If you just have that motivation and that mentality, you'll be able to get to where you want to go. So quadratic equations can be written as what we see up there, where a, b, and c are integers. So a, b, and c are numbers. Okay, we have numbers in the a, b, and c spots. It's all variables. That's called the that's called a polynomial, a binomial. So a binomial means 2. If you notice, there's that 2 above the x, the power x to the power of 2. That is a binomial, and we'll figure out a little bit more of what that means, and we're going to go through examples. We're going to solve quadratic equations. We're going to factor quadratic equations. So let's move on to our ways to solve quadratics. Okay? So there are 2 ways to solve quadratic equations. The first way of solving a quadratic equation is solved by factoring. So you solve by factoring into 2 terms. So this x squared minus 2x minus 8, we will factor down into x plus 2 and x minus 4. Those 2 things mean the same thing. So that x squared minus 2x minus 8 and the x plus 2 and the x minus 4 being multiplied by each other, those represent the exact same thing. And we'll go through our examples. You'll see how we can change that quadratic equation into its factored form. The next way of solving a quadratic is through the quadratic formula, using the quadratic equation to solve your other quadratics. Okay? A lot of letters, I know. It's okay. So I'll kind of just do a small demonstration here. Nothing too intense. We're not going to go through and solve any of it yet. Let's see. Hang on. I actually don't have my pad plugged in. Whoops. Let's get the pad plugged in, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay, where's my cursor? Oops. There we go. Okay. So a little bit, just so you have a better understanding, your letters here in our quadratic equation, they are placeholders. So that A, B, and C, that's where the numbers are typically going to go. So if I have a quadratic equation like 2, if I have a quadratic equation, something like 2x squared plus 3x plus 5 equals 0, then I want to use the quadratic formula to solve this problem. The way I would go about doing that, I have the 2, so A, the letter A is 2, the letter B is 3, and the letter C, getting close to the edge of my screen, I can go a little bit farther down, that is 5. Okay, so what you do, as soon as you see something like this and you want to use the quadratic formula to solve it, write these down. Okay, so you write them down and then write down your formula, and what you're going to do is replace all of your letters, right, with these numbers. And we're going to do that later. Don't stress about it quite yet. This is just getting you the definitions. Make sure you're taking screenshots. It's going to help you, I promise. And then later on, after class, go ahead and write everything down. I hope all of you are ready to move on to the next step. So 2 ways to solve quadratic equations. That's what these are: using the quadratic formula and solving by factoring, which we're going to go through examples of both of these. Let's clear everything off of the screen. And we're going to talk about FOIL method. You might have heard of this before, right? Foiling. The word FOIL is a way to remember how to do this, okay? So you can FOIL the factors of a quadratic. And I hope you just have a mental picture of what your quadratic equation looks like, that ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, right? Keep that mental image, keep that in your mind, because I'm going to demonstrate the foiling method. Okay, the foiling method, and what this is going to do by the end of it, this right here, the factors, are going to become a quadratic equation. We're going to transform this into a quadratic equation. How might I do that? Well, the very first thing is the first letter of FOIL. So let's go ahead and we're going to write the word FOIL down. So it's F-O-I-L. FOIL. So the first thing we do is first. Okay? What that means is that we're going to multiply the x times the x. Notice that they're the first terms of the factors. So what is x times x? Another way of thinking of x times x is, so x times x equals x squared. Okay? A number times itself is that number squared. So like 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, and so on, right? So first, so that is multiplying the first term of both of your factors. Then we move down to our next letter, and that is outside. Outside. So what terms do you think that we're multiplying here? It's the outside terms. So this one is farther out on the left side of the factors, and we're going to multiply that by the outside term on the right side. So they're on the outer edges of your factors. So what is a -4 or a -4 times x? What is, I'll write it down here. So we are multiplying x times the -4, and that equals a -4x. We'll move down to the next letter, and that is inside. So we're now going to multiply the inside terms, and I'll change up my colors so we can keep it a little bit different. The 2 and the x are the inside terms of our factors. How do we multiply those? Well, it's 2 times x, or x times 2, and that equals 2x, okay? And then we are on the last step, and the L stands for last. Last. So we multiplied the last terms of each factor. So we have 2 times the minus 4. And what is 2 times a minus 4? That equals a negative 8. Okay? 2 times and minus 4 is a negative 8. So we have all of this junk, right? All of this stuff. And you're like, well, Paul, you said that we were going to end up with a quadratic equation. Absolutely. All we have to do is we want to take every piece of this and we're going to write it out in a line, okay? And you want to order it from the greatest power, right? The greatest power, this is your power. So whichever one is highest, like if you're dealing with something more than 2, you're not dealing with a quadratic, right? You're not dealing with a binomial equation. You're dealing with another beast of mathematics. So let's just write this out as x squared minus 4x. And then is this a positive or a negative 2? It is a positive 2, so I'm actually going to just write that out, a positive 2x, and then our last term is the minus 8. Okay? So this is what you would call a quadratic expression. Do you know the difference between a quadratic expression and a quadratic equation? It's your equal sign. Okay? If you have this equaling a number or equaling 0, you have a quadratic equation. Right now, we have a quadratic expression. And we don't need to turn it into anything else. What we do need to do is we still have these 2 separate terms, right? You're like, Paul, there are two x variables, just the regular x's, right? Well, we can add them together, right? We can simplify this. So let's go ahead and do that. So x squared, and what is a minus 4x plus 2x? What's a negative 4x plus 2x? Another way of thinking of this is you owe me $4x. I come up to you and I'm like, hey, you got to pay me $4x. And you only have $2x, right? So you're going to pay me the 2x's. And how many x's do you still owe me? Well, you owe 2x. So the minus 2x. So negative 4x plus 2x equals the minus 2x. And then minus 8. And now we have our quadratic equation. Okay? I hope this way has helped you out a little bit with understanding the FOIL method, right? When they ask you to FOIL something or to expand the factors, they're asking you to do this, right? The thing with solving quadratics is that typically it is going backwards. They'll give you this, and they'll ask you to go backwards, which we'll go through that. We will go through that. Okay? That's probably the more difficult of all of the steps. So let's move on to our example questions. We're already getting into the example questions. We're only 20 minutes in. I know time flies by when you're having fun with math, but we're on to our example questions. So our first example question, this is something that you might find on the GED or one of your high school algebra tests, something, right? Our first example question will be, what are the factors of x squared plus 5x minus 5? Okay? So the first thing I always do when I am factoring a quadratic like this, just mentally somewhere on your piece of paper, it's always good just to write, oh boy, sorry. There we go. Just to write, I like to put this down because this is what our end result is going to be. It's going to be inside of 2 parentheses. Like, we can just keep this there and forget about it, I just like to keep that there as a reminder that I want my end answer to look like something like this, okay? So remember the FOIL method, first times first, right? That gave us our first term. So how did we get x squared? Our first term, what is another way of thinking of x squared? It is x squared equals x times x, okay? And since that is our first term, it goes into the first spot, x times x. Then our second term, this part right here, this one is a little bit more of a challenge. What we need to do is think of the different ways that we can get this second term from our factors of 5, or a negative 5. Oh, hang on. You know what? I'm not sure if I have that written out right. Let me double check something. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, right there. Okay, nope, we're good. We're good. We can do this. So we're wanting to find the factors of x squared plus 5x minus 5. So what are the factors of negative 5? When you, what do you have to multiply to get negative 5? So our factors would be 1 and negative 5. So when we multiply 1 and negative 5, we get negative 5. And our other factor is negative 1 and positive 5. Those are the only two factors of our negative 5. Okay? And you might be asking, well, Paul, why does this matter? So I will show you. Uh-oh. Hang on 1 second. This is the downside of doing it live. I'm sorry, you can hear my cat. You gotta get out of here, Spot. Hang on 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, well, that's bound to happen when doing a live class at home. So we have our factors of negative 5, and they are 1 and negative 5 and negative 1 and 5. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to plug these in. We want to figure out how can we get it still doesn't seem right to me. I'm sorry, everybody. Positive 5x. Oh, do you know what? I wrote this down slightly wrong. So this shouldn't be a 5. This was me misreading it. Write this down as a 6. Okay? So, let's back her up a little bit. Just a smidge. So, 6. This is a 6. So what are the factors? Just forget it. It's okay. What are the factors of 6? What times what equals 6? Well, we have 3, minus 6, sorry. We have a 3 and a negative 2. That's one factor. Then, our second factor is negative 2 and 3. What's another factor? We have more. It is negative 6 and 1. And our last factor of negative 6 is negative 1 and 6. So all of these numbers, when you multiply them together, right? When you multiply 3 and negative 2, you get the negative 6. That's what the factors are, okay? Now, which one of these factors, which one, when you add them together, gives you a positive 5? So which one, when added, equals the positive 5? That's what you want to ask yourself, okay? So I see this and I am going through it with in my head. I'm like, okay, 3 plus a negative 2, well, that's 1. Negative 2 plus 3, negative 2 plus 3, that's also a 1. Let's change this to a 3 and a 2. It's good to see. I would like to think I'm okay at math. I've been doing it for a long time, but it's good to see that normal math people can make mistakes too, right? So negative 3 times 2, that's also negative 6. Negative 3 plus 2 is a negative 1. So this isn't important. What's a negative 6 plus 1? It's a negative 5. We're getting warm. We're almost to that positive 5. So then lastly, what is a negative 1 plus 6? This right here gives us our answer of positive 5. It gives us our middle term, okay? And when they're multiplied, it also gives us our last term. So it's like think of it like a key. This negative 1 and 6 is the key for factoring this equation. And all you have to do at this point, it seems pretty simple, all you have to do is write it in. Negative, so negative 1, and a positive 6. These are the factors of our equation. This is our answer. Circle your answer, and you're good to go. That's it. I know it seemed way more confusing, but we're going to go through more examples. You'll feel a little bit more comfortable with all of this, okay? So our first example is done. We're going through 7 or 8 of these today. And then, of course, I'll have class again tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll have our kind of homework day. So it's all different types of math questions I can review and I can help you all out with. And I would encourage you, if you're struggling with any of this, I want you to find the parts that you're struggling with. Go out there, find the equations that you're struggling with. And when I do my homework day, right, on Friday at 9, you can either email me your questions. I'll have my email in the description, or you can just put them in the chat, okay? So our next question, we're moving on to our example number 2. What is the product of x plus 5 and x minus 7? So when I'm asking you what is the product of something, what am I asking you? It's kind of like one of our vocabulary math words. What does it mean to find the product of something? It means to multiply them, right? We're going to expand this problem out. The other thing I'm asking you to do is the FOIL method that we did before. So you're gonna get tired of foiling, I promise you. When you practice these things, you really want to do it a lot, because then it gets burned into your brain. If I am the one to burn foiling into your brain, I am very happy, because you'll probably never forget it. And if you do forget it someday in the future, you'll still hear the word foil, and you'll vaguely think of me saying foil in terms of math, right? So let's FOIL x plus 5 and x minus 7. So we're going to FOIL this term, okay? So I'll write it off to the side here. We have x plus 5 and x minus 7. And let's get all of our arrows up on the board. So FOIL the first term, so first times first, right? And then your outside terms, so these are the first 2 steps we're going to do. We're going to do a couple of steps at once. So what is x times x? It is x squared. And then what is x times a negative 7? It is a minus 7x. Then we move on to our inside term. Okay, what is 5 times x? It is a positive 5x. And what is our last term? 5 times a negative 7. That equals a negative 35. Okay, we're almost done. Pretty nice. All we have to do is simplify the quadratic equation by combining like terms. We're going to combine the negative 7x and the 5x. So thinking like what we did before, we drop everything else down and we have x squared. You have a minus 7x plus 5x. How many x's do you have? Think of your negative signs as debt, right? So a minus 7x plus 5x, that is going to be a minus 2x minus 35. We dropped this down. This comes down, and our x squared come down. So all we did was combine our two middle terms. And that's how we got our answer. This is the product of those two factors. And that's it. You're going to run into questions like that. They're not going to want, with math, especially as you move up in math, they don't want to necessarily get a specific answer for something. They want you to show you understand what's happening. So if I'm testing you on how to FOIL, I don't need a specific number. I don't need that. What I need is for you to show this step, right? That you've multiplied the first term, the outside terms, the inside terms, and the last terms. So you're going to run into questions like that, I promise you. I hope you're all doing good. If, I know I have a few people that are watching, definitely don't be afraid to participate in the chat. I can see it. I can answer your questions if you run into problems or if you want me to repeat something, okay? So this is an active, you can be active in this class. There are no problems with that. Let's get rid of all of this stuff. We still have more example questions to go through. Okay. Another factoring, the FOIL method, right? You will, like I promise, you will be sick of FOILing. If there's anything you remember from today, it is FOIL. I just want you to have that burned into your brain. You can come back and watch the live stream again later on just to get the other things in your head. But if you only take away FOILing today, I am perfectly content with it. I'm very happy with that. So we're going to FOIL x minus 3 and x minus 3. Okay. This one is a little bit special, right? Because it's the same factor, and you'll see something with the end result in this. Remember earlier on I've done videos on it, but talking about patterns in mathematics and how important it is to be comfortable with patterns in mathematics. You might see a pattern when we're done with this one. So we're going to go x minus 3 times the entirety of x minus 3. So let's just rewrite that down below. And let's see. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So let's rewrite x minus 3 and x minus 3, and we're going to FOIL it. Another FOILing example, I know. So first term times first term. Our outside terms. I'm just drawing all of the arrows out right now. Your inside terms. And let's see, so first times first. First times the outside. So we still need to draw that arrow. As long as their arrows are all pointing to all of the letters, we're good, right? Don't worry, we've got it. So what is x times x? That is x squared. And then we're going to go with our first term times our last term, our outside, right? First times the outside terms. That would be a negative 3x. The inside terms, negative 3 times the x. And our last term, negative 3 times a negative 3, what is it? That equals, what is a negative 3 times a negative 3? You have two negative numbers. What's a negative times a negative? And I'm asking you a bunch for a reason, right? It's not a negative 9. It's a positive 9. The negatives cancel each other out, and you're left with a positive 9. Negative times a negative, positive 9. Then all we have to do is simplify. So I'll write that down. Simplify. If you are taking screenshots of this, this would be a good time. Good time to take a screenshot, or after our next step, after we simplify. We want to simplify these two terms, okay? So what does that mean? We're combining them. And when I say combining like terms, notice how like this minus 3x and this minus 3x, they're similar, right? It's not a number by itself, and it doesn't have this exponent. That's very important, right? There are no exponents, and this one is just your integer. So this minus 3x and minus 3x, they are like terms. That's what you would call them. So when we simplify this, we have x squared, and then what is a minus 3x and a minus 3x? Okay? Think more negative. Think more debt, right? If I came up to you and said, hey, you owe me $3, right? And you already owed one of your friends $3. You're in debt. That would mean you owe 6, so more negative, minus 6, and then plus 9. So we have x squared minus 6x plus 9. That is the product of x minus 3 times x minus 3. So this right here is your answer. Circle it. Your math teachers love it when you circle your answers. I don't care who the math teacher is. If you're circling your answers, you are gaining favor with them, right? Because the majority of us don't have really good handwriting, and a lot of people don't enjoy math. So when you're writing this stuff out, people tend to not be perfectly neat with it, right? With me, I'm naturally kind of like, this is, I don't know, would you say this is organized? I kind of think it's a little bit organized compared to how I do it in private. It's all over the place in private. I mean, I understand what's happening and I can clearly point it to you. But, so this is our answer. We are good. And I brought up earlier that you might see a pattern here, right? So we have x minus 3 and x minus 3. Look at these numbers. Look at these numbers. We have a 6 and we have a 9. What are the factors of a 6 and a 9? It's 3's, right? So this 3 got turned into the 6, and it also got turned into the 9, right? Patterns show up everywhere in mathematics. I don't care what you're talking about, how high of level, whether you're talking anywhere from addition to multiplication to taking squares of things or the square roots of things. You have patterns everywhere. There's some real special types of theoretical mathematics that, you know, we'll never get into them, I don't think. That would be insane if I started getting into theoretical mathematics. I could show you guys some real crazy things with it. So let us move on to our next example. We still have a few more to work through. Okay. So we have been foiling to get our exponential equation, but now this time they're asking us to factor it, to break it down into the pieces and then solve for x. We haven't done that yet. You haven't seen it, but I promise there's a reason, right? Like, it's a lot easier than what you think. It's very nice. So let's go ahead and factor x squared minus 6x minus 16 equaling 0. We don't have to worry about the equaling 0 side quite yet. The first step, always keep things nice and neat. Let's rewrite our problem. Let's write x squared minus 6x minus 16. So we want to factor this side. This is a quadratic equation. Do you remember the steps? first, how did we get our first term? It is x times x. Hey, don't forget, put your little parentheses here. It will help you. You'll always remember, if you always remember how, like, to put these parentheses, it's going to help you remember how to do this, okay? So x times x, that is x squared. So we can go ahead and put our x here and our x here. Then our middle term, do you remember how we got our middle term? We have to write out the factors of our negative 16. Let me underline this. So these two pieces here, we need to factor 16. What times what equals 16? Okay, well, we have 8 or negative 16. Don't forget your signs. It's so hard. Sometimes I even forget it, and then you end up getting the wrong answer. It just stinks. So a negative 8 and 2, when you multiply negative 8 and 2, you get negative 16. When you multiply a positive 8 and a negative 2, you get negative 16. What are some other factors of negative 16? 4 and negative 4. And we don't need to flip that one around because it's the same numbers, right? Negative 4. Well, technically, I mean, we could still write it. Let's just do it. Negative 4 and 4. Okay. And then last, we have one more set of factors, and that would be negative 16 and 1, and our positive 16 and negative 1. Those are your factors, all of them. We've listed all of the factors. Now, which ones add to negative 6? So ask yourself this question. Which ones, when added, equal our last or our middle term, and I'll put it in red, equal negative 6. Okay? When you find that, you find the answer to this. They're like we've finished factoring it. Okay? So let's start with, do you know what? Let's just go with negative 8 and 2. What happens? You owe somebody $8. You only have $2. You pay them. How much do you then owe them? Negative 6. We got it right off the bat, our first factor. So then you just go ahead and you rewrite your negative 8 and positive 2 into your binomial here, your factors. Okay? So far so good. We have factored it. But then it still asks us. It asks us to solve, right? Solve this. Well, all of this stuff on the left is equal to 0, right? Let's go ahead. I'm going to erase some of this. So if you need to take a screenshot, take it now. And we're going to erase all of these steps, all of the work. Okay. So we're done with our factoring, and now we are just going to work on solving. So how do we solve this for x? So this is also true, right? Like, because x squared minus 6x minus 16 equals 0, this must equal 0 as well. So this must equal 0, right? How can you multiply things and get the answer 0? Well, this term over here could be 0. This term over here could be 0. Or they both can be 0, right? Those are the only ways. You have to multiply either one of them by 0, or they both are 0, and that's how it's going to work. So you might be asking, like, Paul, this just sounds crazy. Can you just show me how to do this? Yeah. So what we do is we split this up. X minus 8 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. And all you have to do is solve for x. Isolate your variable. Do the inverse operation of what's happening. So x minus 8, so it's subtraction. What's the opposite of subtraction? It's addition. So you add 8 to both sides. What is 0 plus 8? X equals 8. Okay, our second one, x plus 2. What's the opposite of adding 2? It is subtracting 2, and you do that to both sides to keep that equality. X equals negative 2. And circle your answer. This is the answer to that equation. We've figured out what x equals. Those are the only two numbers that when you plug them in for x, makes it all equals 0. That's very important. It's very useful mathematically. Think of it like a key. They're the only two numbers that are going to fit inside of that quadratic equation that zeroes the whole system out. I find that really interesting, right? And I know there are different things out there that use this all of the time. I mean, we have our cell phones, we have our computers, we have all of this technology. When you type in your password into your phone, that's your key, right? So what do you think those numbers go into? What type of math equation? Probably something like this, but it's all inside of the programming. It really is everywhere. These types of things are everywhere. Okay, so you guys doing okay? I know it's a lot of math. It's a ton of math. We're almost at the finish line, though. We have a little bit more to go. I would suspect we have another 20 minutes left of class, but I hope all of you are doing okay. And, I appreciate all of you guys hanging out in here. Give the video a like so it spreads. We want more people to get help with math, right? And I would greatly appreciate it. Here we have our next example. This one we're dealing more with like an area problem, right? So we're going to represent an expression, or we're going to write an expression that represents the area of the rectangle, okay? So how do you find the area of a rectangle? What is the equation for the area of a rectangle? Area equals length times width. What am I really asking you to do? Right? When we look at this, I'm asking you to multiply. I'm asking you to multiply the term negative 4x minus 1 times 2x minus 5. I'm asking you to FOIL again. I know. Foiling has returned yet again in today's class. How do we FOIL this? You do your first term times your first term. What is a negative 4x times 2x? That is a negative 8x squared. Then we move on to our outside terms, FOIL, F-O-I-L, your outside terms. So you multiply the negative 4x times the 5. What is a negative 4x times 5? A negative 5. Don't forget negative signs. People, I know it seems like it's a small deal, but I promise you there have been massive incidents with rockets involving forgetting a negative sign. In fact, I don't know who is all watching or how old you are, but in the early 90s, the Clinton administration launched missiles over into the Middle East. It was quite a big hubbub, quite a big deal. And, I mean, this has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with math. One of the missiles, their guidance system had a negative sign where it shouldn't have been, or there was a missing negative, right? And that missile went very far off of course, and it bombed another city, right? Another town. So your negative signs can have massive impacts. So what is a negative 4 times a negative 5? That is a positive, because remember the negative signs cancel out. That is a positive 20x. Okay. And then we work our inside terms. the I in FOIL. So negative 1 times 2x. Negative 1 times 2x is a negative 2x. And we work our last terms, negative 1 times the negative 5. What is a negative 1 times a negative 5? That is a positive 5. And we're almost done. We've almost written an expression that gives us the area of the rectangle. So a negative 8x squared plus 20x minus 2x plus 5. We go ahead and we simplify. We combine our like terms, and we are left with negative 8x squared, 20x minus 2x. That is a positive 18x plus 5. Okay, and that's it. You're done. All I asked for is the expression, right? So go ahead, circle your answer, and you have finished this problem. Another example done. Pretty nice. Pretty awesome. Okay. Everybody doing okay? We have a little bit left. We have one more example that's nice, and I am going to, let's just read this, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what our last example is, which it's not this one. This is not our last example. But if 4x plus 1 is one factor of this quadratic, what is the other factor? So what are they asking you? They are asking you, they're saying, hey, you remember, always write this down. You're given this. And they are asking you, what is this side? They want you to figure this out. They want you to find the solution to this. So this is our equation that we have to make it look like. We are given our 4x plus 1, and we need to find this other side. So the same thing still applies. Your first term, how did we get, I'll go with green. So how did we get our first term? What times 4x gives us 4x squared? How do we turn that x into an x squared? How do we turn 4x into 4x squared? We multiply it by an x. Okay? Then we have to multiply two numbers that will equal, oh, what is the answer? Did I write this one down right? That's always a good one. See, you know, I'm not flawless. Sometimes I run into problems. So, let's see. Don't you guys worry. You just hang in there. You can hit me up with a message in the chat if this is annoying for you. But this is just like what it would be like in class. Sometimes things don't work out the way you planned. And what I'm seeing, right? I'll explain to you why I am like kind of stopping and double checking whether this is the right equation. And what it is remember, we have to multiply two numbers. We have to multiply two numbers to get our 3, right? The factors of our 3 have to add together to 13. Are there factors of 3 that can add together to 13? No. So I think something is miswritten, which is very possible. I wasn't feeling very well this morning. So let's see. 4x is one of the factors. Let's go ahead. Where did I get this example? Yeah, 4x squared plus 13x plus 3. If 4x plus 1. Oh yeah, no, we're good. We're good. So, yeah, sorry about that. Let us continue this. So this is the key right here, right? This is the 4. That's making everything bigger. Let's still write down the factors of 3. So our factors factors of 3, and that would just be 3 and 1, and 1 and 3. Okay? Those are the only two factors of 3. So that means that no matter what, this answer here is going to be positive, right? And it's either going to be a 3 or a 1 here. And what we can just do is put 1 in. We're going to test it, okay? So when we multiply the outside term times the outside term, what do we get? We get 12x. When we multiply the inside term and the inside term, what do we get? We get 1x. When we add those two together, it's 12x plus 1x. That equals 13x. So this is our answer, this 3. So 1 and 3, 1 and 3. So the other factor is x plus 3. That is our answer. We can go ahead, put that in parentheses, circle the answer, and we are good to go. Sorry about the confusion there. That's what happens when you start doing math and you're not feeling well. It's another thing I would recommend. You want to be in a good mood when you're doing math. I promise you. Like, you want to be in a good mood, you want to be nice and healthy, not be sick. That makes it exponentially more difficult to do math. But we have, let's get rid of all of this math up here, okay? We have one last example problem to do today. Here it is. But we are solving 3x squared minus 10x plus 5 equaling 0 using the quadratic formula. Do you remember the quadratic formula? Did you write it down? Did you take a screenshot of it? That's okay. I have it right there. Okay? I'm coming prepared with quadratic formulas. My coffee is still very hot, and that is good. I burned my tongue. Okay, so solve 3x squared minus 10x plus 5 equaling 0 using the quadratic formula. 3x squared minus 10x plus 5 equals 0. When you solve it, it has to be equaling to 0. It is, so if you remember that kind of formula, it is a, let's see here, there. It is a x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So what is our value for a? What does a equal in this equation? It is 3. B, what does b equal? Negative 10. And c equals 5. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to plug it in for our formula up here, right? We're going to take all of these letters in this formula and replace them with these numbers. So let's go ahead and start doing that. I'll just write this out. So x equals a negative b, so a negative, and then what is our b? It is a negative 10. Paul, that looks ridiculous. You have two negatives by each other. They cancel each other out. We have a positive 10 plus or minus the square root of, yeah, we have enough room there. B squared, so we have negative 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times 5. And all of that divided by 2 times 3. Okay? Okay. You're probably still like overwhelmed with math at this point. We've been going for, how long have we been going for? It's just about an hour, so this is pretty good timing. But let's just start to go through this. I'm gonna rewrite everything back over here. Sorry about the mess. So we have 10 plus or minus the square root of, and what is negative 10 times a negative 10? What is 10 times 10? But it's negative 10 times negative 10. The negatives cancel. So it is 100 minus, what is 4 times 3 times 5? So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 5, that's 60. So 100 minus 60. What's another way, before we even move on, before we finish this problem, what is another way of writing 100 minus 60? Let's just write that in. That is 40. The square root of 40 is on top. Okay? And all of that is divided by 2 times 3. What is 2 times 3? That is 6. Now, you might be thinking, Paul, this is terrible. What more are you going to ask from me on this quadratic equation? That's it, actually. That's your answer. This is, not this way. There we go. That is your answer. We don't really need to do much more than that. On a test or on a quiz, or whether you're in high school, college, or taking the GED, they might ask you to do this with a decimal, right? And like they might ask you to give your answer in decimal form. So at that point, what you would do is you just type this into your calculator, and you are given the decimal form of this. But this really is the perfect answer. Because, and if you're wondering, you might be wondering, hey, what is this symbol here? Plus or minus? Plus or minus? So think about our other quadratics that we solved by factoring. How many answers for x did we have? We had 2, right? Plus or minus. How many answers are right here? What does this represent? It represents 2 answers. 2 are quadratic, right? So this right here, that is our answer for this problem. And that is the last example for the day. It's a lot of things. If you have more questions with quadratics, with factoring, I strongly encourage you to come to my class on Friday and come prepared. Come prepared with questions. I want you to ask me questions. I'm totally open to it. Otherwise, if you haven't already liked the video, by liking that video, you're helping me help other people. You are actively participating in this class and actively participating in the growth of this class. If you want more help with math, I have a ton of videos on my channel. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I would greatly, greatly appreciate all of that. Otherwise, I hope I didn't freak you out too much with math. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I